Welcome back to 3SN, everybody. I'm Alex Laverson, and with me is James, no doubt, Dawson. We are going to be analyzing the first annual 3SN live draft from the Crane Room Bar and Grill. It was a great time, a lot of competition, very competitive, intelligent players. Dawson, what do you have to say?
I have to say that the first annual 3SN draft was a huge success. Thanks again to everybody who came out and joined the fun. Thanks to everybody who listened in and listened to some intense conversations going on, some intense debating, and we ended up getting 10 very good teams out of this draft, and we're going to have a great season as a result of it. So with that being said, I think we need to now try to break down this mock draft, start to look at some of the positives that came out of it, some of the teams that didn't do so well, and just to try to give you, the fans, a little bit of a better understanding of what to expect for your draft in the future.
This is a standard league. A lot of leagues like to do 6 points for a passing touchdown, but our rules will be 4 points for a passing touchdown, and rushing touchdowns, that would be 6 points. The passing would be touchdowns would be 4 points. So let's get right into this. Dawson, what about this draft stuck out to you the most?
I think what right off the bat jumps out at me is the quarterbacks being taken in the first round. Being a standard league, I was surprised that we had 3 quarterbacks going in this first round. Running backs are at a premium, but a lot of teams like to get that number 1 quarterback out there. You were one of them. The top 3 running backs all went in front of you, so you did the natural pick of picking Aaron Rodgers. I think that's a good pick there, but to see Brady and Brees also go in that first round was a little bit surprising to me.
Well, I actually agree with you. That's what I was going to say, too. Rodgers, Brady, and Brees being picked in the first round. Well, what I think it comes down to, even though it's still a standard league with 4 points for a passing touchdown, I think it is just a matter of elite quarterbacks. I don't think it was a matter of just saying, oh, I got to get myself a good quarterback. You have yourself the elite quarterbacks, and you got yourself the, good quarterbacks, but quarterbacks you could still take in later rounds. When I think of the elite quarterbacks, you think of Rodgers, Brady, Brees, and, typically Peyton Manning. But I think it shows maybe a lot of people feel like maybe the running backs aren't as deep as usual. I remember being in some leagues where it was still 6 points for a passing touchdowns, but a quarterback wouldn't be taken until, the 8th or 9th pick. The top 3 backs are Ray Rice, Arian Foster, LaShawn McCoy, and then the 4th running back taken was Ryan Matthews. It just, even though Matthews is usually ranked as, the 4th or 5th best running back, it just doesn't seem like a normal, powerful back lineup. You know what I mean? And, I feel bad for the Congo line who took Ryan Matthews because now he's out 4 to 6 weeks. But look, right after that, Matt Forte and Maurice Jones-Drew. You know what I mean? And, of course, Jones-Drew was a good pick for being, number 10. But it's just compared to other years where it seemed running backs were a lot deeper. At least that's the way I'm looking at it.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, Jones-Drew falling at number 10 was a huge steal for me, and there was no way I could pass him up, contract issue or not, dropping all the way down to number 10. But I think you're right. I'm actually looking here. There was actually one team that went quarterback wide out to start, another person who didn't get his second running back until the 5th round. So you had actually a couple teams who did that. So you had lots of different strategies going on throughout the course of the draft, and a lot of it was based off of that draft location. Now, you had, Alex, one of the top picks in terms of picking your draft position. We drew out of a hat. Whoever picked number 1 out of the hat got to choose what draft spot they wanted first. You had one of those top spots. What was your mindset in picking 4th?
Well, if I had the number 3 pick, I would have taken LaShawn McCoy. On my draft board, it was actually the way it played out for me. It would have been Ray Rice, Arian Foster, LaShawn McCoy, then Aaron Rodgers. Actually, I would have put LaShawn McCoy in front of Arian Foster, but you get the point I'm trying to make. I knew, according to my rankings, if I had the number 4 pick, if Aaron Rodgers was available, I was going to take him. If he wasn't available, I would have taken a running back. Also, let's say if Rodgers was gone and I had the 5th pick, I still don't know if I would have taken Tom Brady. I may have taken Drew Brees, possibly. But even if I wanted another running back, Ryan Matthews and Matt Forte, you just feel like having that high of a pick, even though the running back is better value. Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Yes, just that, the running back is a good value, but it's kind of tough to say that my first round pick is a Matt Forte or a Ryan Matthews. It's tougher to say that. I mean, I kind of had the same feeling that if I had an early pick, I was going to try to get around where you were. As, when I drew number 8 out of the hat, I was hoping to get the last pick. I was hoping I could get that back-to-back, mainly because I wanted to still get, hopefully, a top-tier running back. Someone say like a Ryan Matthews, Matt Forte, or Jones Drew was a gift to get that one solid running back, but then also to get the top tight end. I needed to get Gronkowski in that position just because he is head and shoulders above the rest in a standard league. That tight end plays really well. So that was my thinking with the late pick. If I can get the last one, I can do those back-to-backs, and because pretty much nobody's going to take the gamble on taking the tight end in the first round, but I can take him with the first pick of the second.
Yeah, so I think it's all about value. You just feel like if you have the 5th pick or the 7th pick, you should get the best player available, not necessarily the position in need. And
exactly.
I think that's honestly what it came down to. I mean, the way it worked out for me, my 2 running backs that I got were, first I drafted Frank Gore in the 2nd round, and then I got Marshawn Lynch. And I was also able to scoop up Isaac Redmond better. I felt like I was able to get a decent amount of second-tier running backs according to my draft position. If I was any higher, I may have not gotten those running backs. So to me, it was all about value picking, and in my eyes, I wanted to see who would stick around for a while. And at least in my opinion, it worked out fine.
Yeah, I think it did too. I think you got a very solid team, and you got a couple of potential big-name running backs later on in the draft too, who could play good for you later. But we'll get more into that in a minute. I want to look at the first 4 rounds of the draft, and I want you to tell me, Alex, looking through there, either what team do you see that absolutely dominated that first 4 rounds, or is there some team that seems really behind, or just a specific pick in general that really sticks out at you, saying, "Wow, how did that happen?" Whether it be good or bad.
Well, I don't know if I would say, wow, how did that happen? But I think if you look at, on our draft board, his name would be Grizniz. If you're just looking at it just to the naked eye, think about it. Calvin Johnson, Chris Johnson, Adrian Peterson, Cam Newton. And, of course, Adrian Peterson's hurt. And actually, the pick after Cam Newton, he took Mike Wallace. So you got 2 guys there who are question mark. But if you look at your top 5 picks, that's a pretty solid, at least on paper, that's a pretty solid top of the draft.
Oh, that very well is. He's got the core positions figured out. He's got the top wideout. He's got a top-tier quarterback, and he's still got, I mean, Chris Johnson, by some standards, is still rated as a number 4 running back. He's definitely still top tier. And Adrian Peterson, you have the health concerns, but if he plays, he's definitely top tier. And again, Mike Wallace, the questions of whether he'll play or not, he's probably top tier or a tier 1.5. His top 5 picks are all tier 1 guys. That is unheard of.
Actually, keep going down a little bit. Deshaun Jackson, Tony Gonzalez, Phillip Rivers, that's a pretty good paper team. And I know it's more than that, but on paper, I think he actually might have the best team.
Well, and his words, and I hope we can get it on tape, that we got it good recorded. He said, "I go for the win. I go for a team that's going to win. It could be possible that I could get dead last, but I'm either going to be last or I'm going to be first." And that's a good strategy to go for because, you play to win the game.
That's exactly it.
Yeah. Another team, just looking at it, just in terms of the diversity of the strategy, look at a guy who had the number 1 pick, Beach Wales. He took Ray Rice first, came back around. He got 3 very solid wide receivers with his next picks. Julio Jones, Hakeem Nicks, both top 10 receivers. Marcus Colston always puts up big numbers with New Orleans. But then even after that, his second running back, Steven Jackson, that's pretty solid. He gets a good tight end in Witten, always consistent. And then the law firm, Ben Jarvis Green Ellis, he's a bust potential, but he's also someone who could get double-digit touchdowns. He has some great players out there, and he incorporated the strategy that I did as well. Neither he nor I at the bookends drafted a quarterback until the 9th round. We were actually the last 2 teams to get a quarterback on our roster. So just another different strategy that played out very well, and he got a very solid team. Not as much the studs, the top tiers like Grizz, but Beach Wales definitely has a team that works very solidly and looks also very good on paper for consistency.
I think also, a lot of people may look at his team and say three of his first 4 picks are wide receivers, but then it comes back to, like you said, value picking. Julio Jones, Hakeem Nicks, and Marcus Colston. But he was able to compensate in later rounds for the position he did not address. Or something like me, my team, wide receiver was not really one of my stronger draft needs. But also, wide receiver, it just wasn't on my my to-do list. I wasn't that concerned about getting a top receiver. And I think it comes down to me being in previous drafts, I would put a lot of emphasis on a top receiver. I remember I got Andre Johnson in the second round last year because I drafted last. So I picked Ray Rice and Andre Johnson. But you also have to remember, the receivers don't touch the ball that much during a game. I think that's the issue. And unless you have a top receiving, unless you have a top receiver like Calvin Johnson or even a great tight end in Rob Gronkowski, I think you still kind of run the risk of putting too much emphasis on receivers. I don't think that's the case with Beach Well because I think he got 3 great picks. But I think in general, if you don't know how to compensate in the later rounds, I think you could be in trouble.
Yeah, definitely. And when you look at it, the 3 guys who are there every week at the Crane Room, that is you, me, and Mello Jello, Angelo Fornatero, we picked 5 running backs each. You actually picked 6. That was the most by any team. He had a couple of teams with 4, a couple who only picked 3 running backs, and I don't agree with that. I mean, one of the teams, Team E-Man, this was actually his first ever draft, and I give him great credit. He picked up a very good team, even in his first career draft. But you got to look at it. When you have only 3 running backs, they are Reggie Bush, Willis McGahee, Beanie Wells. That makes it tough because you don't have much to play with. The team hockey season also. Mike Turner, Ahmad Bradshaw, Toby Gerhart are his 3 running backs, and that's all he has. Both of them drafted a couple extra guys at wideout. E-Man has 3 tight ends that he's going to play with, which is fine with the slash. But, again, just a couple different strategies, and I think that the running back depth helps us more than a wide receiver depth helps a team like hockey season.
No, I completely agree. And for me, picking 6 running backs, I obviously don't anticipate on keeping them all. Now, people say, well, why'd you even draft them? To me, just getting the best running backs you can and weeding out the weaker links. So I've drafted 6 running backs. In my opinion, I'm at least going to come away with 3 or maybe even 4 good running backs, and then I can drop them later in free agency. I honestly think, for the most part, the rounds, like 9 to 14 of the later rounds, most people usually shuffle them around anyway. So it's kind of more experimenting. It's just all about me. I'm just making sure I'm going to give myself good 3 running backs, even if I have to drop a few. And
right, and you said it. The last probably 4 or 5 picks, those are filling up your bench spots, and that's probably where you're going to drop players anyway. So I think it's a good strategy. I think it works. We also mentioned value earlier. I want to get back to that. I think the middle rounds is where you need to be looking, not just to fill up your roster, but this is where you really need to look at your value picks. And I think that a lot of people did some very good work with this. I mean, getting, like we said, Beach Whales with getting the law firm in round 7 is huge. Mello Jello takes Stevie Johnson there. You got Peyton Manning as a backup in round 7. Very good value picks. Here's a pick, though, that I think was a bit of a reach, probably the reach of the draft. In the 7th round, the 69th pick overall, Team Steelers 02 picked Robert Griffin III. What do you make for this? He did go back-to-back and took Matt Ryan on the way back through as well, but what do you take of taking Robert Griffin that early?
Well, I mean, for a guy that obviously a heralded rookie, you just still, I think it comes down to a lot of people are hoping RG3 can do what Cam Newton did last year, and I think, Cam Newton showed he's a special player, and I don't expect RG3 to be the next Cam Newton, but it's all about going for that reach. It's all about lucking out. You don't want to find diamond in the rough. And it happens sometimes. Yeah, Cam Newton, and honestly, it's kind of what I'm doing with my 7th round pick. What do you have to say about that, Dawson?
Well, having Peyton Manning, he could become a stud, and if that happens, then you got to choose between him and Aaron Rodgers. If one of them gets hurt, you have a great guy behind you. Or beyond that, also the fact that you can use it as trade bait later on in the draft too. So there's lots of different reasons to make that pick. And, maybe Robert Griffin does start to take off, but he really likes Matt Ryan, so he decides, you know what, I'm going to put Robert Griffin on the trading block, see what I can get out of him. Maybe I can get a good running back because my running backs aren't as strong, that sort of idea. So there's lots of different possibilities. And actually what he told me, I was drafting behind him in that round, he knew he was going back-to-back quarterbacks. I did not have a quarterback yet. He thought I might do the same. And he decided to take Robert Griffin because he had a feeling that one of my picks might be Griffin. If it was, he wanted to get him beforehand. But even if it wasn't, he can still get one of three great quarterbacks still left on the board. I mean, a Matt Ryan, a Phillip Rivers, a Jay Cutler. One of those three were still going to be on the board when it came back to him. So that was his logical thinking, which kind of made sense, but I still think it was a couple rounds too early.
Yeah, I think I just find it extremely interesting how people think when it comes to these drafts. Everyone has their own ideas, opinions, strategies, and everyone's trying to luck out. I think it's crazy. I love hearing these opinions, and you know what? Someone's going to luck out. Someone's strategy to work, because that's how it does happen. And we'll see. But for me with Peyton Manning, like you said, he's either going to be another stud, and then I have to choose between Aaron Rodgers and Peyton Manning. I kind of think that might be a good problem to have in a way. I also think I could have a gem there and trying to make a good trade happen. For maybe, I don't know, someone like a Beach Whale or maybe like who didn't take a quarterback until the later rounds. Who knows? There's a lot of possibilities. Aaron Rodgers is my guy, but if Peyton Manning turns out to be a stud, I'm going to have a lot of fun.
He's a nice guy to have on your bench for sure. You mentioned strategy. Here's one of the big strategies is when do you take a defense. Someone like Congo Line didn't take one until the last round. That was his only defense taken. Team E-Man took him in the 13th round. I took the first defense with the first pick of the 8th round. Is that too early? What do you think?
Well, I mean, I don't say it's too early. I think it's all about who you're drafting. Like, the Niners have a great defense. So I think maybe like the first few defenses, that's fine. You know what I mean? But unless it's a great defense, I wouldn't really bother until maybe the later rounds. But, honestly, come on. Everyone who's drafting at someone else's house or event, they're always in the back of their mind thinking, is it too early? Should I take a defense now? If I take that defense, am I going to be that guy? And then as soon as someone does it, it's like, oh, okay, good. And what a relief. Now I can do it. So that's one of the great enigmas of the fantasy football draft. When is that defense going to go? Because usually when it does, it's like a domino. The dominoes just keeps falling down. So,
and we saw that in ours. I mean, I took the 49ers in the 8th round, and in the 9th round, 5 defenses went. So that just shows it right there. As soon as it happens, then the run begins. And, don't be afraid to be that guy and pick somebody too early, because really you got to choose really with you got to choose with your head, but you got to choose with what your gut tells you. If your gut tells you it's time to get to get the 49ers or to get any player for that matter, then you got to go with it. And I mean, for me, there was really no one on the board at that point, value-wise, that I was really, really wanting. So I took them and I went with them because now I have the top tight end and the top defense in the game. I can really ride that for a good part of the season.
Now, what position do you not want to take, no matter what, until the last few rounds? And
Kicker.
You are that guy and you take them. Kicker?
Kicker. You do not take a kicker until the last round, period. Now, I respect Beach Whales taking Janikowski in the 12th round, 12 to 13 turnover, just because he said he didn't want to make Mr. Irrelevant be a kicker. All right, cool, whatever. I have no problem with that. But honestly, if I'm allowed to in a draft, and we made this part of our rule not to, but if I'm allowed, I will actually go and not draft a kicker. I would rather get somebody who has some value in the 14th round who could end up getting me, a 10-point-a-week season than a kicker who are a dime a dozen off of free agency. But we made the stipulation you had to have a full roster at the time of the draft, so that's why we had to take a kicker. I took a kicker with my last pick, the 14th round.
Now, what player taken in the draft board that you're looking at right now, do you think either will publicly be viewed as being taken too early, or in your opinion, or both in your opinion, actually was taken too early?
Somebody who was taken too early in the draft, well, I mentioned RG3. Another quarterback, Mike Vick in the 6th round, I think might have been a little bit early, but being a standard league, his running abilities make him a little bit better of a play for sure. You know, there's really not too many big stretch and reaches out there like we've seen in previous years and previous drafts. You almost always see somebody who goes way out on a limb on a player way too early. We saw somebody like Jonathan Stewart got drafted in a league in the 4th round. If you look in our draft board, 140 picks, there's no Jonathan Stewart taken there. So there's lots of different things like that. Beyond the two quarterbacks, Vick and Griffin, I really don't see anybody who's taken too exceptionally out of place. You could probably make the claim Randy Moss in the 10th round is too early, but he has a lot of upside. It might be worth the risk there.
Now, well, yeah, Moss is taking in the 10th round by hockey season, then Michael Crabtree on the same team taken. You know, a couple people may look at that like, but I actually do like the Randy Moss pick, and I'm not trying to beat a dead horse here. I'm really not. I think it's a decent pick. Honestly, I was going to take him because I honestly thought he was going to fall until maybe the last 2 rounds. But looks like the hockey season made a smart pick. But
let's look in the last 4 rounds. You know, take the kickers out of it. What's the one pick in there that rounds 11 through 14 that you just see such great value? Like, could be the best pick. Could be somebody who plays really huge throughout the entire season as a result of, and a team can be really great based off of that value pick.
You know, not to kind of toot my own horn here, but I thought Peyton Hillis was pretty decent for being an 11th round pick.
Yeah, both Peyton Hillis and Michael Bush for you can get you touchdowns and could easily take over a starting role at some point in the year. I think I would agree with that. You know, I'll play the homer card too. Ben Tate as the backup to Arian Foster. You know he's going to see time, and there's been games when both of them reach 100 yards. So that's not too terrible of a pick either there. At least I hope it isn't too bad of a pick. I really like Andy Dalton going there in the 12th round. Bo Nick got a good backup quarterback there who could end up starting by the end. And Jacob Tamme as a second tight end. I bet you Beach Whale plays him as a slash as part of the flex position for part of this year.
I completely agree. So, you know, I think a lot of fantasy football championships, even though I said, you know, the last few rounds people usually shuffle around the most, but also in the last few rounds is when people find those gems that can really propel a team into the playoffs. So I think I'm hoping Bush and Hillis will do that for me, but we'll find out. But any other comments on this draft before we head out here?
I think it was a great all-around draft. I think we're going to have some great play throughout the entire year. We're going to have great, evenly matched games all year. We're going to keep tabs on this season as it goes along and see who gets bragging rights for that first ever mock draft.
Exactly, man. So, all right, everyone. Well, let us know what you think. Let us know who you thought had the best team. Leave us comments. Please be respectful. Let us know what we were wrong about, what we were right about. Let us know what we could have done differently. That's why we're here. We're a voice for the voiceless. So let us know what we should be talking about. And that's basically it. You can reach us at the Crane Room Bar and Grill every Wednesday night from 6 to 7 and on Sunday, 7 to 8 p.m. And you can follow us on Twitter at 3S Network, and you can also find us on Facebook. In the meantime, enjoy the preseason games. There's a lot to look forward to. And this is Alex Laverson and James No Doubt Dawson signing off from 3SM.